Senior archaeologist Zextol pressed his crystalline viewing apparatus against the cave wall, his secondary heart fluttering with excitement. The patterns weren't random. They couldn't be. His lower appendages trembled as he traced the spiraling grooves with his sensor pad, comparing them to the database of known geological formations. First Assistant Venra, he called out, his voice echoing through the phosphorescent cavern. Bring the human atmospheric specialist, immediately. The request raised several eyebrows among the Zrix research team. Humans were a relatively new addition to their expeditions, required by the Galactic Council's integration protocols, but rarely consulted for anything beyond basic environmental readings. Most species viewed them as useful primitives, barely a century into their spacefaring age. Dr. Jessica Martinez arrived moments later, her environmental suit's lights casting dancing shadows on the crystal walls. You called for me, senior archaeologist. Her translator rendered her words into perfect Zrix standard, though Zextol noted the underlying tone of surprise in her native speech patterns. Yes, yes. Tell me, what do you make of these markings? He shifted his bulky form aside, allowing her closer access to the wall section he'd been examining. Jessica approached, her movements careful in the low gravity. As she raised her hand to the wall, something extraordinary happened. The grooved patterns began to emit a faint blue luminescence, responding to her proximity in a way they hadn't to any of the Zrix team members. Impossible, Venra whispered, all four of her eyes widening. Jessica's breath caught in her throat. These are human fingerprints, but that's not possible. We've never had a colony in the Proxima Centaurus system. Extol's appendages twirled in scientific excitement as he adjusted his atmospheric sampler. The crystal formation around these marks suggests they're at least 50,000 standard cycles old. Far older than your species' recorded history. The implications hung in the air like suspended dust. Either their dating methods were wrong, or... A loud hum suddenly filled the chamber, emanating from deeper within the cave system. Jessica's presence had triggered something else. The research team followed the sound, their various sensing appendages all registering different frequencies of energy that shouldn't exist in a natural cave formation. They found it in a chamber that seemed too geometrically perfect to be natural. A cube, no larger than a human hand, floating several inches above a crystalline pedestal. Its surface was seamless, composed of a metal that didn't match anything in the Galactic Council's standard material database. Don't touch it, Venra warned, but Jessica was already reaching out, drawn by an instinct she couldn't explain. The moment her fingers made contact with the cube's surface, it burst into life. The chamber filled with holographic projections, star charts, diagrams, and strings of data in a script that predated even the oldest known galactic civilizations. At the center of it all was an image of Earth, but not as a primitive homeworld. It was displayed as the capital of an empire that spanned thousands of light years. By the first egg, Zextol breathed, his scientific detachment crumbling as the implications became clear. The humans, they weren't newcomers to the galaxy at all. Jessica stood transfixed, watching as the holographic display showed human ships, far more advanced than anything currently possessed by any species, traversing ancient trade routes that had been lost to time. Her hand remained on the cube, and somehow, deep in her genetic memory, something stirred. A recognition of something that should have been impossible for her to remember. We need to contact the Galactic Council, Venra said, her voice trembling. This changes everything we thought we knew about galactic history. But Jessica barely heard her. The cube was warm beneath her touch, and with each passing moment, more information flooded her consciousness. This wasn't just a historical record. It was a key, designed to be found, designed to awaken something that had been sleeping for 50 millennia. The real question was, what else was out there, waiting to be awakened? The Galactic Council's grand chamber was designed to humble visitors. Its towering spires of living crystal stretched kilometers into the artificial atmosphere of Station Alpha, while quantum-locked platforms kept each species' delegation at perfect environmental conditions. Today, however, the chamber's grandeur seemed diminished as the Council faced an uncomfortable revelation. Junior human ambassador Thomas Chen stood at the center of the speaking platform, his heart racing, but his voice steady. Honorable Council, the evidence from Proxima Centauri is just the beginning. We've documented 17 similar sites in the past week alone. High Councillor Zixthar, their crystalline for refracting light in patterns of skepticism, leaned forward. You expect us to believe that humanity, barely able to achieve stable fusion, once ruled the stars. Your species still fights over planetary resources. Thomas took a deep breath. The patronizing tone was familiar. He'd endured it throughout his diplomatic career. But this time was different. He had proof. If the Council would indulge me in a demonstration. Without waiting for permission, Thomas stepped off his platform. The chamber's security fields should have automatically redirected him to safety. Instead, his foot landed on an invisible surface, sending ripples of golden light spreading across the chamber floor. Gasps erupted from multiple delegations. The ARCSA representatives' tentacles coiled in alarm. The floor beneath them had become transparent, revealing a vast mechanical complex stretching for kilometers in every direction. Ancient machinery hummed to life, responding to Thomas's presence just as the cube had responded to Dr. Martinez. What you're seeing, Thomas explained, walking further onto the invisible surface, is one of humanity's old monitoring stations. We found them beneath every major Galactic Council facility. They've been here all alone waiting. The Valaxi ambassador, her feathers bristling with indignation, raised her voice. This is an outrage. You've hidden technology beneath our seats of power. We didn't hide them, Thomas corrected. We forgot them, just as we forgot everything else. But now we're remembering. As if on cue, holographic displays materialized around the chamber. They showed similar facilities being discovered across the galaxy. Ancient human outposts awakening after millennia of dormancy, each activated by the simple presence of human DNA. High Councillor Zixthar's voice had lost its condescension. Why? Why would an advanced civilization choose to forget? Thomas gestured to a particular hologram, showing Dr. Martinez's discovery. The cube from Proxima Centauri contained more than star charts. It held a warning. Something was coming, something that forced humanity to make an impossible choice. The chamber's lights flickered as the ancient machinery continued its reactivation sequence. Above them, the artificial sky darkened, revealing a star map unlike anything in the Council's records. It showed the galaxy not as it was, but as it had been 50,000 years ago, when humanity stood watch over the stars. We didn't abandon our role as guardians, Thomas continued, his voice growing stronger as genetic memories stirred within him. We transformed ourselves into a hidden failsafe. Every human child born carries fragments of our ancient knowledge in their DNA, waiting for the right moment to awaken. The ARCSA representative uncoiled slightly. Your species' aggressive expansion across the stars. It wasn't random colonization, was it? Thomas shook his head. Each human settlement, no matter how primitive it might appear, was strategically placed. We've been unconsciously rebuilding our ancient defense network, piece by piece. The chamber erupted in overlapping questions and demands, but they fell silent as new holograms appeared. They showed human children across the galaxy suddenly drawing impossible machines, scholars making breakthrough discoveries in fields they'd never studied, and ancient facilities responding to human presence in ways that defied current technological understanding. High Counselor Zixthar's crystalline form vibrated with concern. What triggered this awakening? Why now? Thomas looked up at the holographic stars, his expression grave. Because what we were guarding against is returning. And this time, the galaxy doesn't just need our forgotten technology. He turned to face the council, ancient knowledge burning behind his eyes. It needs to understand why we chose to sleep in the first place. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the depths of the newly discovered archive beneath Olympus Mons, trying to process what she was seeing. The chamber stretched for kilometers, filled with crystalline data cores that hummed with ancient power. Each one activated at her touch, spilling forth secrets that humanity had buried along with their civilization. Playlog Entry 47 Alpha, she commanded, her voice steady despite the weight of discovery. The air shimmered as a holographic figure materialized. A woman in elaborate robes that seemed to shift between dimensions. Final documentation of Project Chrysalis, the figure began. The entropy swarm approaches from intergalactic space. Our calculations show they will reach the galaxy in approximately 50,000 years. Standard evacuation protocols have proven insufficient. They follow the quantum wake of our ships through dimensional space. Sarah felt a chill as genetic memories stirred within her. The robed woman's features were eerily similar to her own. Not a coincidence, she realized. Nothing about humanity's evolution had been left to chance. The council is divided. The hologram continued. Many advocate for immediate retreat to another galaxy. But we've seen the long-range scans. There is nowhere they cannot follow. Our only option is to hide in plain sight, to become something they would never recognize as a threat. The chamber's walls came alive with diagrams, the complete genetic restructuring of an entire species. Humanity hadn't simply chosen to devolve. They had rewritten their own genetic code into an encrypted archive of their civilization. Dr. Marcus Webb, Sarah's research partner, entered the chamber. Sarah, you need to see this. We found similar archives activating across the solar system. The genetic triggers are spreading exponentially. It's not just information being unlocked, Sarah said, watching as new data cascaded across the holographic displays. These are instructions. Our ancestors left us a manual for rebuilding everything they knew, encoded in a way that could never be detected by external scans. The hologram shifted, showing the vast scope of humanity's plan. Every human child born carried fragments of their ancestors' knowledge, dormant until needed. Their apparent evolutionary path had been carefully orchestrated. Each technological discovery was actually a remembering, timed to ensure they would be ready when the entropy swarm returned. The changes are accelerating, Marcus noted, checking his tablet. Reports are coming in from every human settlement. Children solving quantum equations. Teenagers building gravity manipulators from scrap. It's like we're all remembering at once, Sarah finished. She touched another data core, and new information flooded her consciousness. The sensation was overwhelming but familiar, like recalling a dream she'd had every night of her life, but never remembered upon waking. The holographic woman spoke again, her voice carrying the weight of a civilization's choice. To those who will awaken these records, you are not just our descendants. You are our contingency plan. Every aspect of your development has been designed to prepare you for what comes next. Your curiosity, your adaptability, your drive to explore, These are not evolutionary accidents. They are tools we gave you to ensure our people would be ready. Sarah's hands moved across the control surfaces instinctively, accessing information she shouldn't have known existed. The genetic memories were becoming stronger, more coherent. She could feel the knowledge of her ancestors integrating with her own consciousness. "Marcus," she said, her voice distant as ancient memories surfaced. "I understand now. The entropy swarm doesn't just consume matter and energy. It feeds on technological signatures, the quantum remnants of advanced civilizations. That's why we couldn't fight them directly." The chamber hummed as more systems activated, responding to the awakening knowledge in Sarah's genes. "Our ancestors didn't just hide their technology," she continued. "They hid it inside us, in a form that was undetectable. We're not just carrying information, we're carrying the seeds of a civilization that learned how to transcend traditional technological advancement." Marcus watched in awe as Sarah's movements became more assured, her actions guided by 50 millennia of dormant knowledge. "So, what happens now?" he asked. Sarah turned to him, her eyes reflecting the light of ancient data streams. Now we remember who we really are, and why we chose to forget in the first place." The Seattle Space Needle coffee shop wasn't where anyone expected the next breakthrough to occur. Maya Chen stared at the latte she'd just crafted, her hands trembling. Instead of the usual heart or leaf pattern, she'd somehow created an intricate diagram of quantum entanglement fields in the foam. "That's not possible," she whispered, but even as she spoke, equations and theories flooded her mind. Knowledge she'd never learned but somehow understood perfectly. Across the city, similar incidents were occurring. At Lake Washington Elementary, 6-year-old Trevor Williams had turned his building blocks into a working model of an anti-gravity device. His teacher stood frozen, watching as the blocks hovered above the carpet, defying everything she knew about physics. Dr. Sarah Chen, reviewing reports from her makeshift command center in the Mars archive, recognized the pattern. "It's not random," she told the assembled team of human and alien scientists. "These awakenings are following the neural pathways our ancestors designed. Each revelation triggers the next, like a cascade of dominoes falling through our collective consciousness." On her screens, similar reports poured in from every human settlement across the galaxy. A teenager in the Centauri colonies instinctively reprogrammed a farming robot to tap into subspace communications. A grandmother on Luna suddenly spoke a language that predated known human civilization. Each incident added another piece to an impossibly vast puzzle. "The genetic memories are integrating faster than we anticipated," Marcus said, reviewing the data. "It's like our minds are being optimized to process the information. The more we remember, the more we can remember." Sarah nodded, watching as new patterns emerged in the data. "Our ancestors designed our brains as quantum processors. Each human mind is capable of storing and processing infinite amounts of data. We just needed the right key to unlock that potential." A commotion at the archive entrance interrupted their discussion. A group of children, none older than 10, had somehow bypassed the security systems and made their way to the central chamber. But instead of chaos, they moved with purpose, their small hands flying over control surfaces with impossible expertise. "Don't stop them," Sarah ordered as security moved to intervene. "They're supposed to be here. Watch." The children worked in perfect synchronization, their actions guided by memories older than their species' recorded history. Holographic displays sprouted around them, showing the true scope of humanity's plan. Each seemingly random awakening was actually part of a carefully orchestrated sequence, designed to rebuild their ancestors' knowledge base from the ground up. "It's beautiful," Marcus breathed, watching the pattern unfold. They didn't just preserve their technology, they encoded the entire scientific process into our DNA. We're not just remembering facts, we're remembering how to think like they did. Sarah's tablet chimed with an urgent message from the Galactic Council. More facilities were awakening across known space, responding to the surge of human genetic activity. Ancient defense systems, dormant for millennia, began running diagnostics. The galaxy itself seemed to be responding to humanity's awakening. There's something else, one of the alien scientists noted, is sensory tentacles quivering with excitement. The human awakenings, they're not just affecting your own species. Your presence is triggering dormant systems in our own ancestral records. Sarah watched as new data confirmed his observation. The ancient humans hadn't just prepared their own species for this moment. They'd laid groundwork in every civilization that would evolve after them. Subtle genetic markers, technological breadcrumbs, cultural seeds planted to ensure that when humanity finally awoke, they wouldn't face the coming threat alone. In the center of the chamber, the children had finished their work. A new hologram dominated the space, a complete blueprint of humanity's master plan. Each awakened memory, each rediscovered technology, each seemingly random incident across human space had been another brushstroke in a portrait 50,000 years in the making. Sarah felt ancient knowledge crystallizing in her mind as she studied the display. "We're not just remembering who we were," she said softly. "We're becoming who we were meant to be." The children turned to her in unison, their eyes bright with ancestral wisdom. The next phase was about to begin. The Zurich's deep space array picked up the distortion first, a ripple in the fabric of reality that shouldn't have been possible. Chief Observer Nultix spent 3 days verifying the readings before sending the emergency signal to the Galactic Council. By then, it was already too late for the Centauri Delta colony. Ambassador Thomas Chen stood with the emergency response team, watching the long-range feeds. The colony's star system was aging centuries in minutes, its planets turning to cosmic dust as space-time itself unraveled around them. 10,000 colonists gone in an instant. "It's exactly as the ancient records warned," Dr. Sarah Chen said, her voice tight with controlled fear. She'd been transported directly from Mars to the Council emergency chamber, her genetic memories making her the foremost expert on what they faced. The entropy swarm doesn't just consume matter, it accelerates the heat death of the universe itself. The council chamber erupted in panic. Species that had once looked down on humanity as primitives now turned to them with desperate hope. The Arxa representatives' tentacles writhed in distress. "You've faced these beings before. How did you defeat them?" "We didn't," Thomas replied, accessing memories that weren't his own. "That's why we hid. Direct confrontation was impossible. They fed on the energy signatures of our weapons, grew stronger with every defense we mounted." Sarah stepped forward, interfacing with the chamber's ancient human technology. Holographic displays showed the swarm's approach vector, a vast cloud of reality-ending destruction, moving faster than should have been possible through normal space. "But this time is different," she continued. "Our ancestors spent 50,000 years preparing for this moment. Every human child born, every colony established, every seemingly random technological breakthrough, it was all part of the plan." The displays shifted, showing the true scope of humanity's preparation. What had appeared to be primitive human settlements were actually nodes in a vast defensive network. Each human mind was a quantum processor, ready to link with others to form a computational matrix beyond anything the entropy swarm had encountered before. "The reason our ancestors hid their technology inside us," Thomas explained, was because they discovered something crucial about the swarm. It can detect and consume artificial computational systems, but it can't process organic quantum networks. A new alarm blared. Another colony had gone dark, its star aging millions of years in minutes. The swarm was accelerating. "We don't have time for a full evacuation," the High Counselor stated, their crystalline form vibrating with fear. "Even our fastest ships can't outrun the space-time distortions." Sarah's eyes gleamed with ancient knowledge. "We're not running this time." She activated another hidden system, and the chamber's floor became transparent, revealing the vast machinery beneath. Similar revelations were happening across the galaxy as humanity's dormant defense network awakened. Every human settlement, she continued, was positioned according to precise calculations made 50,000 years ago. "We're not just random colonies. We're the nodes of the largest organic quantum computer ever created." Thomas nodded, understanding flooding through his genetic memory. "Our ancestors didn't just give us their knowledge. They redesigned our entire species to be the weapon they couldn't build with technology alone." The chamber's ancient machinery come to life, responding to the accumulated knowledge of awakened humanity. Across the galaxy, children drew star charts that became battle plans. Teenagers solved equations that mapped dimensional barriers, and adults remembered skills that transcended normal physics. Sarah turned to the council, her voice carrying the weight of 50 millennia of preparation. "We need every species to evacuate to the designated safe zones. The entropy swarm isn't just humanity's enemy. It's coming for all life, all reality. But this time, we're ready." Through the chamber's windows, they could see the fabric of space rippling as the swarm approached. But as fear gripped the alien representatives, the humans in the room stood taller, their eyes bright with ancient purpose. The real test was about to begin. The dreams came to everyone at once. Billions of humans across thousands of worlds jolted awake in their evacuation shelters, their minds filled with visions of celestial battles and impossible technologies. But they weren't just dreams. They were memories, battle plans encoded in their DNA, waiting for this exact moment. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the Mars Archive's central chamber, watching as humanity's collective awakening reached its crescendo. The holographic displays showed human brain activity across the galaxy synchronizing, forming patterns that defied conventional neuroscience. "It's beautiful," Marcus whispered, watching the data streams. "Each human mind is connecting to the others, forming neural pathways across light years of space." A 6-year-old girl walked into the chamber, her eyes glowing with ancient knowledge. "The quantum encryption sequence is ready," she said, her voice carrying echoes of ancestors long dead. "Shall we begin the initialization?" Sarah nodded, understanding flooding through her as genetic memories clicked into place. Every primitive human settlement, every seemingly random colonial pattern, they were all part of a vast organic computer, designed to process calculations that would drive conventional machines mad. "Show me the village sites," she commanded. The displays shifted, revealing how even the most basic human settlements had been positioned according to precise quantum mathematical principles. Each campfire, each well, each gathering place had been unknowingly placed to form vast computational arrays. In the Galactic Council's emergency chamber, Ambassador Thomas Chen watched as new data poured in. "The defensive systems aren't just machines," he explained to the assembled representatives. "They're extensions of us. Our ancestors built them to respond to human consciousness because technology alone wasn't enough." The Arxer representatives' tentacles twisted in confusion. "But your species barely understands quantum mechanics. How can you possibly operate these systems? We don't understand them, Thomas replied, ancient memories surfacing. We remember them. There's a difference. Across human space, children were teaching their parents how to access the genetic memories. Grandmothers suddenly understood hyperdimensional mathematics. Farmers recognized the quantum principles behind their crop arrangements. Every human experience, every cultural practice that had seemed primitive or random, was revealed as part of an intricate preparatory program. Back in the Mars archive, Sarah interfaced with another ancient system. The entropy swarm adapts to technological patterns, she explained to the assembled scientists. That's why conventional weapons failed. But we're not fighting them with technology, we're fighting them with life itself. The displays showed the true nature of humanity's defense plan. Each human brain was a quantum processor, more sophisticated than any artificial computer. When linked together through the ancient network, they formed a computational matrix that could predict and counter the swarm's movements. Our ancestors didn't just give us their knowledge, Marcus realized, watching the pattern emerge. They gave us their purpose, every human instinct for exploration, every drive to settle new worlds. It was all preparing us for this moment. A new alert sounded. The entropy swarm had devoured another star system, but this time something was different. The human settlements in nearby systems had activated their quantum links, their combined consciousness creating patterns that the swarm couldn't process. This is what we were designed for, Sarah said, her voice carrying the weight of millennia. Not just to remember, but to become something new. Something that could face the swarm not with weapons, but with life itself. The ancient machinery hummed as more human minds joined the network. Each person contributed their unique quantum signature, their consciousness becoming part of a vast, living calculation that spanned the galaxy. In their evacuation shelters, humans of all ages felt the connection growing stronger. They weren't just sharing information, they were becoming something greater than themselves, fulfilling a plan 50,000 years in the making. The entropy swarm approached the first major human world, ready to feed on what it assumed would be primitive technology. Instead, it encountered something it had never faced before, a species that had turned its own consciousness into a weapon. The real battle was about to begin. The weapon wasn't the technology, it was humanity itself. As the entropy swarm descended on the first major human colony, it encountered something unprecedented. 10,000 human minds, linked in perfect quantum synchronization, their combined consciousness forming patterns that defied reality itself. Sarah Chen watched from the Mars Command Center as the first engagement began. Children worldwide had taken positions in ancient facilities, their minds interfacing naturally with systems that had baffled the galaxy's best scientists. They weren't operating the machinery, they were becoming one with it. "Look at these readings," Marcus said, his voice filled with awe. Every human settlement is activating. The quantum network is spreading faster than the swarm can adapt. Orbital platforms emerged from gas giants where they'd hidden for millennia, powered by the accumulated knowledge of generations. But they weren't conventional weapons platforms. Each one was a focal point for human consciousness, amplifying the quantum signals generated by billions of awakened minds. In the Galactic Council chamber, Ambassador Thomas Chen felt the connection growing stronger. Each human carries a piece of the solution, he explained to the stunned alien representatives. Our minds were engineered to work in concert, creating defensive patterns that the swarm can't predict or consume. The ARCSA representative watched in fascination as human children across the galaxy began operating machinery that their best scientists couldn't comprehend. How is this possible? "Because we're not using the machines," Thomas replied, ancient memories surfacing. "We're showing them how to dream." Back on Mars, Sarah interfaced with the quantum network, feeling the thoughts of billions flowing through her consciousness. The genetic memories were fully awakened now, revealing the true nature of humanity's defense plan. Every story they'd told, every song they'd sung, every pattern they'd drawn in cave walls, all of it had been preparation for this moment. "The swarm feeds on structured energy," she explained to the assembled scientists. "It consumes technology because technology follows predictable patterns. But human consciousness, especially linked consciousness, creates patterns that are both structured and chaotic. We're not fighting the swarm, we're teaching it a new way to exist." Across the galaxy, the ancient defense network come to life. But unlike conventional weapons, these systems were extensions of human thought itself. Children instinctively understood how to weave their consciousness into the quantum field, creating interference patterns that the swarm couldn't process. The first counterattack wasn't an attack at all. When the swarm encountered the quantum field generated by linked human minds, it tried to consume the energy, only to find itself being reshaped by the dreams and memories of billions of humans. "We're not destroying them," Marcus realized, watching the data streams. "We're changing them. Every human thought, every memory, every emotion, it's creating a new kind of pattern that the swarm can't resist." The displays showed the transformation spreading. Where the swarm touched human quantum fields, it began to change. The entropy effect didn't stop, but it altered, becoming something new. The death of stars became their rebirth. The acceleration of time became its renewal. Sarah felt the collective consciousness of humanity surge as more minds joined the network. They weren't just sharing thoughts, they were sharing dreams, hopes, fears, all the chaotic beauty of human experience. And the swarm, designed to consume orb energy, found itself drowning in a sea of structured chaos. "This is why we had to forget," she whispered, understanding flowing through her. The swarm could track any technological defense, but it could never predict what a species might dream up after 50,000 years of evolutionary sleep. In space, the swarm's advance faltered as it encountered more human quantum fields. Each consciousness added to the pattern, creating a tapestry of thought that was both mathematical and artistic, both logical and impossible. This wasn't just humanity's last stand. It was the culmination of the most ambitious plan ever conceived, a species that had turned its own dreams into a weapon that could reshape reality itself. The final battle wasn't fought with weapons, but with dreams. As humanity's quantum consciousness reached its peak, the entropy swarm encountered something it had never faced in all its eons of existence. A species that had weaponized its own capacity for imagination. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the heart of the Mars archive, her mind connected to billions through the quantum network. Around her, children danced through complex holographic interfaces, their movements choreographing the greatest transformation in galactic history. "The pattern is complete," she announced, her voice carrying through both physical and quantum space. "Every human mind is synchronized. We're ready for the final phase." In the Galactic Council chamber, Ambassador Thomas Chen felt the shift as humanity's collective consciousness reached critical mass. The alien representatives watched in awe as human quantum fields began to alter the very fabric of reality. "We're not just fighting entropy," Thomas explained, ancient memories flowing through him. "We're teaching it how to dream." The swarm, vast and terrible, encountered the full force of humanity's awakened potential. But instead of finding technology to consume or patterns to destroy, it found stories, dreams, hopes. the accumulated imagination of a species that had spent 50,000 years evolving not just bodies, but minds capable of reshaping reality itself. Where the swarm touched human quantum fields, transformation spread. Stars that should have died were reborn in patterns that defied physics, but followed the logic of dreams. Space-time didn't unravel. It rewove itself into new configurations born from the collective imagination of billions. "Look," Marcus breathed, watching the displays in the Mars archive. "The swarm, it's learning." The entropy beings, designed to consume ordered energy, found themselves absorbing something else: the ability to create rather than destroy. Each human mind connected to the network shared not just thoughts but possibilities, teaching beings of pure entropy how to become something more. Sarah felt the change rippling through the quantum network. This was the real plan, she realized. Not to destroy the swarm, but to evolve with it. Our ancestors didn't just prepare us to fight, they prepared us to teach. Across the galaxy, human settlements glowed with quantum energy as the transformation reached its peak. The swarm, once a force of pure destruction, began to change. Its entropy effect didn't vanish but transformed, becoming a force for renewal rather than ending. In the council chamber, alien representatives watched as their instruments recorded the impossible. The human quantum network wasn't just defending against the swarm, it was integrating with it, creating a new form of existence that was neither purely physical nor purely entropic. "This is humanity's gift to the galaxy," Thomas said, feeling the change through the quantum link. Not conquest, not domination, but transformation. We remember what we were, but more importantly, we see what we all can become. The ancient machinery, hidden for 50 millennia, began to power down. It had served its purpose not as weapons, but as catalysts for change. The human settlements, positioned according to quantum mathematical principles, had created a pattern that taught entropy itself how to dream. Sarah stood in the Mars archive, watching as the final transformations rippled through space. The swarm was no longer a swarm, and humanity was no longer just humanity. They had become something new together, guardians of a galaxy where entropy and life learned to coexist. "What happens now?" Marcus asked, as the quantum network began to stabilize into its new configuration. Sarah smiled, feeling the combined knowledge and dreams of her species flowing through her. "Now we do what humanity has always done best. We explore, we learn, and we grow. But this time, we do it not just as humanity, but as teachers and guardians of life itself." The galaxy sparkled with new possibilities as the transformed swarm beings took their place among the stars. Their destructive nature turned to creation through the dreams of a species that had spent 50,000 years preparing not for war, but for evolution. Humanity had come full circle. Once the ancient ones who guarded the galaxy, they had become something more, the dreamers who taught entropy itself how to imagine.